EA Sports College Football is coming back. July 2023 is the target date right now, so gamers rejoice. We did a story recently at 247sports.com and uncovered a few factoids and some hidden secrets that EA Sports has been trying to keep under the covers as they work toward their target date. Chris Hummer, a lot of great feedback on this so far.
Absolutely, Brandon. Your story blew up, man. It was really fun to read. I'm just wondering, as you come through it, what were your key takeaways from it?
Well, to me, personally, as a nerd, I'm trying to figure out what's the game going to look like. And to me, the number one thing is are players going to be involved? We know that the game looks like it's going to come out in July 2023, but will we see player names out there? And yes, that is the idea, but they got to sign group licensing deals. They're working towards that. That's going to happen here in the next few months.
What about a release date? When are you targeting?
July 2023. If you guys remember the old NCAA college football game, always mid-July. Looks like that's going to be the case once again.
I think a lot of people would say there's a pretty big hurdle to clear with how players can potentially be in the game. What does that look like from an NIL front?
Well, I think that everybody's going to be willing, for the most part, to really sign on there. They're not going to get a big payday, maybe something like a little bit like mid four figures at the highest, but you're talking to a lot of players. They just want to be in the game. Some of them don't even want the money, including Clemson quarterback DJ Uiagalelei when I talked to him at ACC Media Days.
What do you think a cover would look like?
They want to go with a current athlete, someone who will be playing in the 2023 season when they put it all together. They want to make a big pop out there. They want their poster child, their cover star, to be out there playing games on Saturdays when it comes out.
All right, let's start there. I want to go with the cover. We're talking 2023, so it's a little while out, but who do you think would be on the cover? The last game I remember having was Denard Robinson. I remember talking to him about a story for EA Sports. Yeah, he loved the game. He wanted to be on the cover. He would have done it for free. Who would your ideal cover athlete be?
I think they just pick the Heisman Trophy winner. I think they go maybe with a safe bet, or unless there's just a superstar that pops out there that's Mr. Personality, maybe you do that. But I think they'll go out and probably get the Heisman Trophy winner, someone that they can market easily and they know is a proven commodity. They won't come out there and maybe potentially have that Madden curse. Because, by the way, that is a real-life thing that these players are worried about. Will Anderson, the best maybe player regardless of position at Alabama, he told me, he goes, oh, heck no. I don't want to be on the cover. I don't care how much money you give me. I don't want to be that first person and end up starting a new curse. Because the Madden curse is real, guys. 16 of 22 cover players on that game have ended up being injured the next season or had their season cut short by off-the-field issues.
Well, I hope Bryce Young and CJ Stroud aren't that superstitious when they get approached for this later. All right, so what about the engine? I feel like the Madden engine is likely direction based on your story. What will that look like? Yeah,
that's kind of the bare bones of it. You got to have a skeleton for a game. So simply put, they're using the Madden engine, but they're tweaking it. They've been building off of it. Remember, this didn't start overnight. They've been working on this from the college football side for really the last 3 years. I know it was announced back in January of 2021 or February 2021, but they were even kind of working on it a little bit before that, preparing for the idea of being able to pitch this. And so they're tweaking things. It's going to feel like a college game, but it will have the bare bones of that Madden engine powering it all.
I should ask this from the top because this is probably the question everybody's going to know, but what platform are you going to be able to play this on?
Yeah, listen, that's a big sticking point for a lot of fans right now. It appears, based off the sourcing I have, that it's only going to be next-gen only, PlayStation 5, and of course, the Xbox, what is the next new Xbox?
Series X.
Series X, so there you go. No PS4, no Xbox One, so save up your money. Good luck trying to get a PlayStation 5 out there. I know they're still hawking those all over eBay for like $900, but as of right now, that's kind of what they're thinking. Next-gen only, PC to be determined.
I have to say, as a person who plays a lot of video games, I didn't get my Xbox Series X until a couple months ago. It was super difficult. And I have a lot of friends that want PlayStation 5s that still can't get them. So that'll be really interesting. There's the microchip shortage that goes into those systems, and it's really hard to get them. And I don't know if that'll be cleared up by next summer.
No, definitely. And by the way, the game most definitely will not be on Nintendo Switch. Sorry. There's not enough power in that thing.
Not enough power to be in the game. So I was reading your story, and it mentioned playbooks and how it might be more specific to college. What is that going to look like game-wise?
Well, if you guys remember the old, NCAA football, they had the RPOs. They had 2 plays, I believe, that were kind of RPOs in the late stages of that game when they stopped making it in 2013. They also started doing the Wildcat before the NFL started introducing that in the Madden games. So they are going to do team-specific playbooks that look like something that your team runs. They will have triple option, of course, for all the service academies and everybody out there. They're going to do team-specific things. What's going to be interesting, though, to me is how does that change depending on like who the quarterback is at a school? Because the possibility is there that some of these players are not going to sign on with these group licensing deals. So, for example, let's say like this year, let's say Bryce Young decides, I'm not going to sign with this. And then Alabama, for whatever reason, their backup quarterback's a little bit maybe more mobile, or he's a left-handed guy, or they just do things differently. A certain side of the field will be attacked more. Do you tweak the playbook at all as well, in addition to depending on who you bump up with on the depth chart there? That's very interesting. And by the way, when we talk about rosters, that's another thing EA Sports is kind of wrestling with. What do you do if the starter or the star player decides not to be part of the game? Well, do you bump up the backup to be the starter? Or do you create a fictitious player who kind of fits the playbook but doesn't resemble the NIL of that player that you're replacing? That can get in some legal trouble. Of course, that's why NCAA football went away in the first place, because they were creating players in the game that resembled those in real life and they weren't getting paid for it.
That is one thing I was curious about roster-wise. What is it going to look like in terms of updates? So obviously scholarship situations change, depth charts change. We see that in Madden, where mid-season they will update the rosters as time goes on. Is that going to happen in college football?
Yeah, it looks like they're going to update it pretty often. They don't know like how often, but there will be updates. In fact, they were telling me, the people close to making the game, that they are going to be updating this thing all the way up until release, and then of course throughout the lifetime of the product, which will be a calendar year if they make this every year. And of course, when you look ahead, when do they have to go to production for the game? Well, Madden, they went to production about 45 to 60 days before the release date in mid-August. They're preparing for the same thing for college football. They believe that they can put the rosters all together, the initial one, by like mid-June to even maybe late June. So they've got a long runway here to put the initial roster together. And then on release day, there will be a downloadable update that will have even a more up-to-date roster. But it's not going to be something that's updated every week with injuries and all that. It's too massive a task. But if a player opts out of the game to start with, but then decides to sign on to a contract to be in the game, they will be updated and they will be added to the game during the season.
Well, as somebody who covers the transfer portal, I hope they have transfer portal windows by then, because rosters definitely change.
And that's a big thing also. I didn't mention this in the story. How do you handle the transfer portal? How do you handle NIL in the game? What kind of game modes do you deal with that? EA Sports being very tight on that, and I believe it's because, mostly from the people I've talked to, it's because they're still trying to figure that out all the way up to their deadline.
All right, let's speculate then. I want to know about recruiting. I want to know about transfer portals. If you had your say and they were asking for your input, what would that look like in the game?
I think you would try to go pretty bare bones with NIL, because then you're getting into a whole complex issue of, okay, so I'm playing this game as a one player, whatever. And so I've got Bryce Young on my team. And then all of a sudden I'm playing Dynasty mode and someone comes in with a $12 million NIL collective offer and he's not on my team anymore. That was my quarterback. This is my Dynasty. Why are we taking that away from me? I think you got to keep it pretty bare bones. You don't do anything that's really too massive out there, especially when you're playing in those Dynasty modes. Transfer portal, I think, could be a lot of fun because they've had quite a bit of time to really work on this. It's going to be a lot like free agency you see and everything in the Madden games. I think that could be really fascinating, especially when you're playing, against your friends and everything.
I do remember the old NCAA mode where you were recruiting and you had a certain number of points to allot to people to recruit them. Do you think that's going to be updated for this game?
I think so too. I think that they will find some type of not a merit system, but exactly like a system where you have a pretty idea week to week how many more phone calls or visits or whatever, how many times can I bend this player's ear to really get after him?
Well, that has always been my favorite part of NCAA football, building a dynasty. So I'm very curious what that's going to look like. One of the last things, Ultimate Team is a very popular thing in the Madden franchise. You essentially get cards of players and you can power up and level up your team either through purchasing power or your own skill. Is that going to be part of this franchise?
That very much looks like that's the direction they're heading right now. Very fascinating to watch, especially with the NIL space and the player licenses and all that. Also, maybe some historic teams of some sort. Maybe you see, the Miami team that absolutely just demolished everybody in the early 2000s. Maybe you see that great USC, great USC teams under Pete Carroll. Maybe an old Nebraska team or two running some of the I formation. That would be very interesting to watch. Of course, that's a lot more money. You got to start paying players from the past and everything. And college football, obviously, so many more teams, a lot more money to spend, and probably not as lucrative as, say, the Madden franchise at this point. I think the sales total set for the previous NCAA game was about $3 million. So it's going to be a little bit larger for the initial run here. I think that's maybe something that they try to work on in the future if the money's right.
Well, if I was a player, I would definitely want some of the cut of those microtransactions.
And hey, here's the microtransactions, and of course you can make some money off this. Throwback uniforms. I'm told that EA Sports has been working on developing a big rotund database of that stuff, and I think a lot of fans would pay a lot of extra money through a DLC to get those.
And that was the last thing I wanted to ask you about. What tradition makes college football? The stadiums, the people, the fans, the chants, the signs. Is that all going to be incorporated in this game?
Absolutely. In fact, that's what they've been spending the most time on. And they started working on that about 2.5 years ago, soliciting assets from schools, stadium photos, audio files, even had a spreadsheet they sent out to all these schools of tell us the time of the game, the exact moment that these songs come up, why they come up, and everything. In fact, one school, according to an open records request I got a hold of, they had filed over 3,500 pieces of assets, music, photos, and everything. And I'm told that the designers building the stadiums, that's what they've been spending the most time on. They want this to look as realistic and as have so much pageantry that we see in college football. They want to make this uniquely college football and make it look so much more different than what you're accustomed to seeing in the Madden games.
Well, I know just talking to recruiting people, they're going to use this as a sales pitch, maybe what the game looks like and how they interact. So that'll be really interesting. But Brandon, it was a great piece, man. Really enjoyed it.
Hey, thanks. I can't wait to get the game in my hands.
Absolutely. Can't come soon enough.